Are tablets and mids the new computer? Is all you need a web browser? Is this the new? Is hosted software, software as a service, is that the new computer? How about e-book readers or digital picture frames? Are those the new desktop computer? What about televisions? How about cars? Are these all the new computers? Well, the answer is yes, because, as you can see, the desktop era of computing is over and the mobile consumer is where all the growth is. Today, people want to connect to the internet on their phone, in their car, in front of their television, in their shower, anywhere, right? And so you see this explosion of book readers, tablets, music players, connected cameras, home entertainment systems. This is where all the growth is. In fact, growth in the consumer market, the consumer PC marketplace, for the first time was bigger and faster than business PC growth. We're reaching the end of the desktop PC era and we're going into the mobile client era. And in this new market, in the mobile consumer where you have cars and cell phones and video games and smart appliances and all of this, Linux is one thing that all those new types of devices share in common, because it can be easily repurposed to any form factor. It supports any chip architecture. It supports off-the-shelf hardware components that can quickly be assembled to create an incredibly compelling experience. No other OS can do this easily. So that's the second reason. And the third reason is that we're moving towards a services-based economy. My prediction is in a few years, the price of a PC laptop or a netbook or a tablet or a phone will be zero. They will be free. You will no longer buy hardware. We already have free software. In the future, we're going to have free hardware. In fact, we're already seeing it today. You know, you can go into any store and get a free laptop when you sign up for a T-Mobile service plan in the UK, the US, anywhere. Don't worry, for the hardware people in the room, you're still going to make money. You're just going to sell to different people, right? Instead of selling your product directly to a consumer, you might sell it to a wireless carrier. Or instead of making money from the actual hardware, you'll make money from the service. So here's some examples, right? Nokia is doing this with their OV service, where you can get music, games, email, you name it. Google is a great example of this. Apple does this with their iTunes product. You can get streaming music from things like Rhapsody. Everything is moving towards the service model, and that's really where a lot of the money in consumer electronics will be made. This has also been happening in enterprise computing. If you're a small startup in Silicon Valley, a small company that wants to build the next great website or Google, you don't buy any hardware, you don't buy any software. You create everything on virtual machines in Amazon's cloud, and if your business succeeds, you buy more virtual machines, and if your business fails, you're not really out that much money. This is really where the future of computing is going, towards services. And once again, Linux is the de facto standard in the services economy. And the way to think about it is this. Ask yourself a simple question. Could Google be the company they are today if they wrote the Google search product on Microsoft Windows using .NET? It would not exist as a company. They couldn't do it, right? They needed to have an operating system that they could customize, that they owned. That was important. And that is the same for any other type of service provider, whether it's Facebook or Amazon or Google. And so what you can see here and why it's important to pay attention to Linux, why it's important that Linux is in your future product strategy is because it is the only operating system that is at the center of every single major technology trend today. The move towards services, whether you want to call it cloud computing or software as a service, the redefinition of the client from a PC desktop to a mobile phone to a tablet, the need for economic efficiency and speed, and finally, the Internet of Things, of connected devices. All four of those trends, Linux is leading in each area. And so that's great. And I could end here because I run the Linux Foundation, and of course I think Linux is great. But there are challenges. And the first challenge is cooperation. And this is important to consider, because the great thing about Linux is anybody can use Linux. And anybody can call any Linux kernel-derived operating system Linux. And the bad thing about Linux is anybody can call any Linux kernel-derived operating system Linux. It kind of looks like this. Linux can change over time. And so what happens is if Linux changes too much, that shared research and development, that big benefit decreases, right? Because you're not sharing anymore, you've just created your own custom OS. So how do we prevent this? What does the industry do to prevent this? Well, what we do is we work upstream with the main upstream projects, whether it's the Linux kernel or the GNU toolchain or whatever. And when you're thinking about standardization and cooperation, you want to look at layers of standardization. So when you're creating the next big mobile device or automotive system or whatever, this is what you need to think about. You need to think about where you're going to standardize in the stack. At the hardware level, you need to enable the broadest range of semiconductor, of chip architectures, ARM, Intel, MIPS, you name it. You need to be able to have off-the-shelf driver support for lots and lots of different devices. And this is really a big cost center. This isn't really something that's going to differentiate your product. In that layer, at the hardware layer, the Linux kernel is really the only game in town. It is the only software development process or project that has the kind of critical mass to support so many architectures and so many devices. And all of that development takes place at kernel.org. And so when you're looking to standardize, look to standardize as close to the mainline upstream Linux kernel as possible. That's what MeeGo does. And that's what that's what Red Hat does. That's what good Linux providers do. The next layer is in the native application languages, C, C++. And this is mainly for games and rich media. People who are buying these tablets are buying them for games. I think 60% of tablet users want them for games. And so in that area, most people are going to glibc, the GNU toolchain, to create their native application environments. And so in the case of MeeGo, you have glibc and the Qt framework in order to build rich native applications. The next layer of standardization is in runtime. Things like Java, Flash, Silverlight. Android has a Dalvik, which is basically a Java fork. And these are good because they're cross-platform, although because they're interpreted runtimes, they don't have the same kind of performance. And I have to say, this is my personal opinion, I think most of these runtimes are kind of going to go away. I mean, I think these are somewhat important for the near term. I mean, people want to have Flash in their web browsers and so forth, or they have some Java application they want. But I think over time, these will go down and go away. And really, people are going to move towards a web runtime and HTML5 for rich, portable applications. That just is the most economic way to create a cross-platform portable application. So I think for this audience, you need to focus on hardware layer with the Linux kernel, the native toolchain. Take a look at Qt. Take a look at these core GNU C libraries. And then look at the web runtime as the most important platforms for you to standardize on and join in projects like MeeGo to utilize that shared development effort. The second big challenge for the industry is a unified legal defense and understanding open source. One of the things that happens when you create products using open source is you have a lot of new licenses that you need to figure out. And we all want to comply with those licenses because if we don't, we can't sell our products. And so there's lots of organizations like the Linux Foundation and others that can help you in understanding the legal costs and details of using open source and Linux.